All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode, Spring into Football. Today we have our good friend Jason, one of our group members in our Jake Bates fan club, UFL group chat, whatever you want to call it. As part of this podcast, we bring different friends on. We've had the JT Zone, who more notably covers football, has his own football page. But we love bringing friends on in general. It doesn't really mean that they have to cover football, but we're glad, Jason, you can join us. I know it was a little last minute, but we know that you are pretty familiar with the UFL. We know that you keep up with a lot of the games week to week. And I did see you kind of were involved in the weekly conversation this past week. So it was you had some interesting things to talk about, including the interesting decision to schedule a team 3 weeks consecutively. But we'll unpack more of that later on. But and then we have Diego. Thank you so much for joining as well. As always, one of our more consistent members on the show. So, Diego, thank you for joining. All right, guys, we're going to get started right away. So, not much to go over, kind of like our normal weeks. Obviously, we usually have 4 games to talk about, but, this week we're only going to talk about 2. So, I mean, really just going off of last week, did anything really stand out to you guys? In terms of, that could be just kind of how the games unfolded, that it could be, the outcomes of the games, that could be, just maybe overall stat lines. I mean, this is really your time to kind of express some opinions you may have had, and would love to hear some of those. And we'll also, Jason, I know you weren't a part of this, but Diego, myself, and the other 2 original crew members were part of a bracket challenge that none of us were successful in because the defenders ended up beating the Storm. So, but we'll revisit those in some fashion in a little bit. But just wanted to get your guys' overall thoughts here from this past weekend of the playoff games.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
If I
Jay. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I found actually, really depending on how you like the game, how you like to watch the game, could be good in your eyes. But I've noticed that both DC and Louisville completely
Mm-hmm.
dominated the game on the ground. Just pounding that rock. Whether it be straight up the middle, sweeps it outside, whatever it may be. They both really just lit it up on the ground. Did a lot more than Orlando and St. Louis did. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my big key, observation and takeaway from it. DC had three different guys go over 30 yards. Abram Smith was the highlight, 11 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then Deion Jackson, he was out there too, 12 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown. And, Deion Jackson being the league leader in rushing yards and touchdowns, you would think he would get a little bit more involved, but it's actually Valladay that got a little bit more than him. He had 8 carries and 42 yards, but no touchdowns. So that DC run game was really lighting it up compared to Orlando. And then same thing with Louisville. They were a little bit more dominant on the ground, but you had Ian Wheeler, 7 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. James Robinson, 7 carries, 52, and a touchdown. And, St. Louis wasn't able to keep up. I mean, they really tried. They really tried going through the air with Luis Perez going 27, 45, 248, and a touchdown and an interception. And, I mean, they had 2 really good receivers in Howard getting 15. I'm sorry, that's Russian. Stephen McBride getting 10 targets for 84 yards. Like they were trying, and they really spread the ball out between a bunch of guys. McBride's just the one that, had the higher stats, but they just weren't able to keep up with Louisville on the ground. So, and then, same thing for Orlando.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like what you're kind of reeling to us is that the run games are really pivotal in both these, and really every style of football. All these teams, if they had run the ball even that much, like a little bit more successfully, how could the game have been different? How could the outcome have been different? Obviously, Orlando, like you said, didn't really keep up with DC in terms of rushing. Jayshon Corbin was the leading rusher with 24 yards at 5 attempts for Orlando this past weekend. But then you had DC, who had 4 different guys actually combined for, over 150 yards. So with 172. So it's like, including Jason Bean. So I mean, it's really just like, okay, how much different would the game have been if, the opposite side was able to rush as effectively or even more so. So, um, Diego, did you have any overall thoughts here from this past weekend?
Yeah. Well, to start off, can say the Orlando Storm shit the bed. I don't know if you call it the old Anthony Beck effect or whatever, but I mean, I feel like that first half, DC just came out swinging. Jason Bean honestly looked pretty solid, especially considering that he hasn't really gotten much playing time with the defenders. Um, but and then yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I think no matter what happened, I think the Storm still had a really good season, but like it's just a playoff hump that Anthony Beck still needs to get over, like it really just makes you wonder, is he even still going to be able to get an NFL gig with,
Mm,
this curse in the playoffs? And then you had that whole situation happen in 2023 in the XFL when the Ballots going to make it.
mm-hmm,
Um, but going on to that next game, I thought that game was pretty fun. It was nice to see Louisville dominate. Chandler Rogers looks great. Um, Cam Gill of the defense looked really good. Um, but yeah, no, kind of as what Jason was saying. Yeah, Luis Perez just did not look good. I don't know if he just plays too scared or if he doesn't have enough time. I know the offensive line has been a major talking point across the Bellhawks fan base, but
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, that's not good for the Bellhawks, especially considering that now you have a bunch of angry fans saying, "Oh, why can't we ever win a game?" Or like, is this team ever going to be good? Or like, but I mean, that like there are things that happen in the locker room that we may not always know about. But I think this is going to be a great championship, and I'm
mm-hmm.
honestly glad that we had a great slate of games last week.
Yeah, yeah, that was something that I was really grateful for as well, is because sometimes we don't have two good matchups or two good games, but we were really glad that this past weekend brought lots of action-packed football. Obviously what we had said on the episode was, was what we expected to a certain extent, but going out and seeing it like that, just means so much more. Seeing it materialize is is what we hope for. So we were really glad that both those games had really good turnouts, had really good fan attendance, and really just Daytona Stadium wasn't very accepted amongst the UFL community, not only the Storm fans, but other fan bases as well. And I'm glad that the league, did as much as they could, getting past that hurdle and potentially playing in Columbus. But I mean, it just kind of shows that they're willing to do anything to kind of make ends meet. So, all right. All right, we're gonna move on here to the next topic. Thank you guys for doing that. We'll revisit the brackets a little bit later. Well, I mean, we kind of already have. I don't know how much more there is to revisit. All I can say is that this week we're not going to have a traditional bracket or prediction type post along with our promotion, just because it's only one game. We'll talk about it later on in our predictions, but we won't have anything to kind of show for it in terms of graphics. But Jason, you kind of got unlucky. I apologize for that, but you would have made the cut if it was any other week. But it's all good.
Ain't no worries, my boy.
Yeah. All right. All right. So yeah, we broke that. So we broke down the championship. I thought we did a good job, kind of just going over that stuff and what kind of went down in both of those games. So, yeah. So let's talk about this. Or sorry, we talked about the first week, but we can get into the championship. So, what are you guys most excited for? Obviously, these are two teams. They have very different styles. I think Louisville has shown that they've struggled on the run game at times, but they've really picked it up here in these last couple of weeks. And then Chandler Rogers has been, starting to find some consistency in that offense. So, and then obviously on the other side, you have Jason Bean, who, you know, played pretty good. I would say he made some really tough throws, like, in tight windows and, under pressure. And that's what you like to see, like against a tough defense in Orlando. For him to do that, I mean, that's very impressive. Obviously, he's got a heck of a wide receiver core, with a lot of good names. And so I mean, just really two good teams. I'm really excited for this game. I mean, did you guys have anything you wanted to add here? I think it should be a really good
Yeah.
end of the season. Yeah.
I think to start off, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that Jason Bean um, uh, matchup is going to turn out against his former team. I think that's a kind of more obvious storyline that everyone's going to be talking about amongst the UFL fan base. That's one I'm really looking forward to. I think this game overall is going to be like a shootout game, kind of like last year's championship. But no, I think it's going to be a great game. It's a little weird to see an afternoon slot, but I know sometimes you just got to make do with what you have. Later that night, you have the NBA Finals also on ABC. But nonetheless, I think the ratings will do well. I've been checking the Ticketmaster map a lot just to analyze the sales, and honestly, I think we're gonna have over 16,000 at that game, which for Audi Field, I think is really good because I don't think we've seen numbers like that since 2023. But no, nonetheless, I I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason, did you have anything kind of
Yeah, I
pertaining
mean,
to the? Yeah.
kind of a similar situation as to what Diego said. Jason Bean revenge game. That's probably going to be your top headline. But just seeing what they did in these two games here, against Orlando and St. Louis, watching the run game was something that I think they're going to match pretty evenly in. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be as effective for either team as it was during the semifinal week. Um, it's really hard, especially with Louisville having a little bit of a tougher time running the ball all regular season compared to what they did, this week. It was almost a shocker seeing them do as well as they did. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be, I would assume they'd probably head into the game with a similar game plan, which is running probably about 60% of the time and then throwing probably 40%. Yeah, Jason Bean revenge game, the running game, it's all gonna, kind of mesh together pretty well. I think Louisville does come out on top. I might be, getting a little bit ahead of myself as far as the prediction goes, but yeah, I think Louisville comes out on top. That revenge game is, or sorry, not Louisville. I think DC comes out on top. Sorry. I think that revenge game is going to put a lot of fire under the ass of Jason Bean, and I think he'll be able to go out there and show him who he really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Listen, I think it's going to be a great week of football. It's going to be a great way to end the season. You got DC, playing at their home stadium. Obviously, we've had a couple instances like that in the NFL where the home team has played, obviously scheduled way in advance. And you still have the home team. Obviously, we're a lot more likely because 32 versus or whatever it is, 16 versus 8 or 4, but. I mean, still to have that happen, it's a rare occasion, but we're excited. I'm excited. I'm hoping the DC fans show out like they always have. And yeah, so it should be a great week to cap off the season. It's crazy how we've made it this far. It seems like it seems like it started just yesterday. So, all right. So, did you guys have any matchups to watch potentially? I know we've kind of talked about them a little bit. I don't know. I think Jason Bean against Louisville, that's the revenge game. I think Jason, you were talking about that a little bit. Diego, I'm sure you would have had to say that as well. A lot of the team is the same. I'm sure Jason Bean knows Cam Gill is going to be, very much, down his throat, so to speak. Like he's going to be very involved in the pass rush, like he always is, and potentially some extra motivation getting his former quarterback to the ground. So. I mean, you have that. You have the run games. I think both run games are pretty respectable. Obviously, I think Louisville's slower to kind of start the season, but they kind of started to find a rhythm as the season went on, and the quarterback play started to improve. And then same thing. I mean, DC's run game has really been good all season. It's really been their focal point. Obviously Jordan Teamo got hurt. They kind of had to shift the offensive focus, kind of a more run approach. And it hasn't, it's safe to say it's been working. So Obviously they've wrinkled in the past a little bit along with Bean and the wide receivers, but I think they have a really good case for winning this game too. So, did you guys have any like potentially matchups? Whether that's a player against a run defense, a pass defense. You can do, quarterback. Potentially a rusher, pass rusher on the other side. What did you guys have anything for that? If not, we can move on.
I'm curious as to how DC's run game is going to line up against the Louisville defense. And I say that because, like I was touching on earlier, Louisville's kind of struggled all season in the run game. And, they had the good week against St. Louis on the ground, but they also let up 100 yards to St. Louis on the ground. And with DC coming off the big, the big game on the ground that they had, especially with Deion Jackson leading the league in rushing yards and touchdowns, it's probably going to be a lot tougher for Louisville to contain the DC run game because, they just saw success with that. I don't see why they would want to change the game plan now. They might have to, depending on, how much film Louisville actually watches. But I'd say just commit to the run game, dude. You've got, like I said, like I keep saying, and it's so impressive that Deion Jackson lead the league in rush yards and touchdowns. So, I mean, just double down with him. That's your key success right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like we said, they've been so successful at that. And if you're Louisville, you have to commit to it because, I'm sure they know Jason Bean. Like, I think I saw mic'd up a couple of weeks ago that like defender was talking about a player, like the quarterback. And he's like, he's not good, bro. So like, can we potentially see a similar development now that you know this player very well in Louisville to Jason Bean? That is so. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar quote being aired out there. So, but no, I'm definitely interested to see kind of how all these phases kind of line up against each other. So, Diego, did you have anything here?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Louisville Kings cornerback Cam Densler is going to play in this game. I think he's going to try to take this seriously. I mean, obviously because it's a championship, but also throwback to week 10 when he had that fight on the field. He can't try to have any mishaps like that in this kind of game when Louisville is actively trying to seek that first championship, especially with how much buzz there is in that city after they got a pro football team. He's got to just try to stay content as much as he can. But no, I think kind of as Jason was saying, I think that run game's going to look really good. I want to know which running back is going to have more rushing yards. Is it going to be Ian Wheeler? Is it going to be Deion Jackson? Those are very two talented guys, and I'm just really excited to see the both of them play. And then Riley Moore of the DC Defenders, I could see him having a touchdown or two. I mean, that home field advantage is, of course, going to help him, even though this is technically an away game for the Defenders, because I saw that the Louisville Kings will actually be the designated home team for this game. But no, nonetheless, I mean, I think it's just going to be a good one in regards to the matchups.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can all agree across the board that all these matchups together are going to be really strong. It's going to make for a really good championship, and we're all very excited. I wanted to turn our attention here to the UFL awards. So obviously, the regular season has officially concluded, and so we're starting to get some of the awards, not all of them just yet, but I wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on if not all of them, then at least some of them. So obviously, I think Diego may have hinted at this earlier when he was talking about Coach Anthony Beck, but Coach Anthony Beck winning the Coach of the Year award, and we I was actually surprised because we were talking about something else in the group chat at the time, and I just happened to send it, and I mean, it didn't really like hit anybody because he's like, okay, he's not in the playoffs anymore. Like they've already gotten eliminated. But what were you guys' thoughts on this? I know I know Diego, you said that Chris Redmond got snubbed. I happen to agree with you, Jason. I didn't really see anything from you. I know you were kind of upset for another underlying reason that I deeply apologize for. But if you guys want to potentially just speak on that, I know the other awards are a little more self-explanatory. Like, I mean, defensive player, offensive player, special teams, and then assistant coach, I think are all self-explanatory. There's no argument for me on those. So what do you guys think? Just overall awards.
I think they were all pretty good. Talking about the coach of the year, I feel like Beck probably did earn that coach of the year award, because if you really think about it, he stepped into a team that really didn't have anything going for it. I mean, a brand new team who never played a single game before, basically built the roster from scratch, obviously with help from his front office and, you know, this, that, and the third, whatever you want to call it. But it's impressive what he did, being able to take a team that they've never played together. Obviously, they've had practices and all that, but they've never played games together. They don't know how the chemistry is going to be. And to take a team like that and go to the playoffs with it, and I mean, having by far the best record in the league, going 8-2, it was really impressive that he was able to do that. I don't think there's honestly any coach in the UFL now that would have been able to do that. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening for anyone. So I think Beck earned that award, but you know, everybody else, like Farrah said, was pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely no denying in his efforts. I think, the way he tried to rally that locker room, even if they lost, I think they kept a positive energy all year, which is definitely what, a city like Orlando needs, especially considering that, they've been burnt out by spring football so many times. But the fact that Beck was able to go out there and just defy all odds, which was really nice. And I think that, they can go into next season in a more positive light, and hopefully some of the fans will stay. But no, I mean, the only reason why I think Chris Redmond was snubbed was only because of how rocky that first half of the season was.
Yeah,
And then the way he just came back and kind of just shed a new leaf in a way, I think, after Jason Bean got traded, which I don't think Jason Bean was necessarily bad, but I think, with this league only being 10 weeks, as I said prior on the podcast, there's only so much you can do. But no, I heavily agree with you, Jason, now that I'm kind of hearing more about it and letting it sink in a bit. But something I noticed with a lot of these rewards is that I think a good, probably like 75% of them are all Louisville players. Mac Brown, Tanner Brown, Cam Gill. Those guys are completely talented. I think honestly all three of them get NFL looks after this championship. I don't know who exactly might get picked up. I think Tanner Brown will probably be the first one to get called. But I think there's a lot of great things waiting for these guys.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys just said. I think, it's a good reflection. I've talked about it before, earlier on this season, how Louisville's always had good individual play, but sometimes they struggle to put it all together, which is, some ways reflective of, their losses earlier on in the season. But then, having those players winning those individual awards, it shows that they do have good individual effort, but sometimes it's just meshing all as a team, and sometimes they did struggle to do that. So, yeah, I mean, Anthony Beck winning the Coach of the Year award doesn't I wouldn't say it doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't upset me. It doesn't frustrate me. I think it's definitely deserved, and congratulations to him. I just think Chris Redmond, the way he turned that team around, I mean, it wasn't pretty in the first couple of weeks. And like Diego said, sometimes you just need to change the scenery. Sometimes you just need to do something that maybe a little outside the box. So they trade Jason Bean, and they really just started rolling from then on. So yeah, I mean, I think you could look at it from either side, but Chris Redmond would have been a good pick too. I think this year is
if
probably,
I could add another argument really quick.
Yeah.
With Louisville being as talented as they are, they've had these individual awards, but like Diego hit on, they were struggling to put it all together at times. And while Beck necessarily didn't have, a guy that stood out above everybody else in terms of winning awards, he was definitely able to put it together a lot better as from a coaching standpoint, which is why I think he also should have and did win it over Redmond. He had a more complete team all around, whether you want to argue because Louisville won more awards that they have more talent, or however you want to look at it. I still think Beck did a much better job in the coaching front of putting it all together and working with what he was given. Granted, Louisville's now going to the championship, but these awards obviously are based off regular season, so we kind of can't really take playoff success into account for it. Well, they say you're not supposed to, but let's be honest, they do anyway. Yeah, I think Beck just coached a more complete team. I'm sorry, I think he put together a more complete team through his coaching. And that's what Coach of the Year is supposed to do. They're supposed to put together a complete team that doesn't really rely on just one or two or three guys to do most of the work. I mean, everybody was really getting involved across the board. So I think that's another reason why Beck won it over Redmond.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's a good lesson. I mean, like you said, it's about really, the most collective effort, the most collective team, upbringing. And so, it may not have been Chris Redmond, but Anthony Beck definitely lots to be proud of. His first year in new city as one of the new expansion markets. And Jason, this is, and Diego, I can really refer to either of you guys, but this is it's a league that we're hoping we get another year of, because there's always speculation regardless of how successful we may have thought it was in this past season. But I would he's definitely going to return as the head coach. There's no doubt, obviously when those conversations come about. And I think Orlando, when we get draft announcement, which actually we haven't yet, something we could potentially bring up in a little bit about when we might get announcement of. But I think they're in a really good position, especially with potentially Coach Anthony Beck coming for another season. So, all right. Yeah, and then some of the other awards. So you had Tanner Brown being named Special Teams Player of the Year, the kicker for Louisville. You had Hakeem Butler, St. Louis, Offensive Player of the Year, and then Cam Gill named Defensive Player of the Year. Wagner football legend. I'll be starting tomorrow over there. I'm really excited. So hopefully I'll be able to mention his name in our staff meeting. But he's just I see him on their page all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I've had those discussions from day one. Like, he's going to be a good player in this league. And Diego, I think you mentioned him as part of our standout players when it was you and I only last week on the call. So I mean, he's standout player, and he wins the Defensive Player of the Year award. So all right. Okay, guys, we're going to get into the championship predictions. All right. So who do you guys have winning? Feel free, drop a score prediction. We don't typically do score predictions because it's a lot of games. It was a little bit uncertain at times because we had the 4-point field goal. We had the 3, 2, or 1 yard conversion attempts. But now we've seen every game except one. So we have a better idea of how this may play out. So if you guys could drop who your winner is, and then as well as attach a score with it. If you guys want to go, and then I can go last or second, whatever you guys want.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I keep going back and forth with this one because in my bracket, my original score for the Storm and Kings, potential championship was going to be 31-38, but I don't know. I think looking at this game and how these systems are set in stone, I feel like a score around 21-24 probably sounds more realistic, just because both of these teams have great defenses. They have a lot of standout guys, as we talked about. So scoring might be a little more limited, but I mean, nonetheless, I do think the game will we'll be good. We'll have a lot of moments. I think probably the second half will probably be when it starts to slow down a bit. But no, I think that's probably where I would set in stone for this championship.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna go a little bit more high scoring. I'm probably gonna say DC by a score of 28-26. Now it's a very specific reason why I say that. I don't know why I just see this happening. I think it's gonna be very, very, very tight heading into the fourth quarter. I think DC's gonna get a late touchdown, and then I think Louisville's gonna go try to tie it up. They're gonna score a touchdown. I think at some point during the game, Louisville is gonna miss a PAT. Just literally just something that is in my mind. I just can't get off of it. So I'm just, going with that. I think they're going to be down 28-26 at that point after they score the potential game tying touchdown. They're going to go for 2, and I just don't think they're going to get it. And that's going to give DC the win. Like I said, I have no reason why I'm saying this other than it's just, what's been on my head. So, that's my prediction, because while I was highlighting the run game a lot for both teams, what we didn't really, somebody kind of highlighted on it. Jason Bean, he did light up the stat sheet in terms of passing yards as well, going 233 and a touchdown. And Chandler Rogers, he had a pretty decent day too at 12 for 20, 162 and a touchdown. But I think Bean's got that slight edge over Rogers in terms of what he can do through the air. He's able to. He takes more careful time, takes more time, and he's more careful reading the field, making the best read possible. So I think that gives DC the edge as well. Yeah, so I'm going to go 28-26 DC.
Okay, yeah. So is that 2-0 for DC? Did I hear you right, Diego? Sorry, just a lot. You have DC winning too?
I'm
Louisville winning.
I'm still rolling with Louisville.
Okay, so all right, we got 1-1 here. So, all right, go ahead, share mine. So I think, you know what? I think you guys brought up a lot of good points. I think it could be very low score, like lower relatively scoring, or a little bit higher scoring. But for me, I probably have a score of, I don't know. I think it could be, I don't know. It could be like 21-19 for me. I think here, listen, I think if you give me both teams, I think, man, this is tough. This is a tough one. I think, you know what? Give me DC. You know what? I'm rolling with DC. I think, you know what? I think they're going to play a great game. I think Jason Bean, provides a very good, repertoire for that offense, and he has in the last couple of weeks. I think the run game is going to figure it out. As long as, DC's offense can, protect Jason Bean, I think they'll be okay. Louisville's secondary is also really good, but I think DC's wide receivers have been playing good all season, regardless of who's lining up against them. So, again, it's going to be a lower scoring game in my eyes. I think 21-19 is a fair score. It's going to be a similar development, like Jason said. It's going to be, whether that's a game-winning field goal or a failed 2-point conversion in the waning seconds on the last drive. They fake it, they miss it, they try for the 4th and 12 onside kick attempt, and they don't get that, and the game ends like that. So I have DC winning. Again, very close all throughout, but I think I think Jason Bean and that team, they're going to win the championship. Shannon Harris, two consecutive championships for that team, and I'm just really excited for all of what's to come this week, and I'm sure you guys are too. But yeah, 2-1 now, Diego. We'll see it. We'll see what Rafa and AJ have. You know what? I'm interested to see what they have. I'm gonna make sure. I mean, although they weren't able to join us this week, I want to kind of ask them, like, okay, hey, what's your reasoning? Like, just give me some of your time, and just send me a message, like, okay, like, why do you give me a score, and why do you have that team winning by that much?
Watch Roth pick something like 24-48 DC or something. He's gonna pick something completely ridiculous, and he's probably gonna say, "Oh, 50 Cent is performing, he's gonna help give DC a boost or whatever. Or I mean,
Yeah,
that's
50
not
cents
complete.
performing,
yeah.
they're going to score 50 points.
That's funny. Well, that's something we also forgot to mention. That was a good reminder. 50 Cent to perform at the halftime show in DC. It should be a great turnout. 50 Cent has actually performed in the Super Bowl before, if I'm not mistaken. So it's great that the connections that this new league has with the new ownership, that they were able to get a big name like 50 Cent. So um, all right, just one other topic. We probably should have gotten into this earlier because, obviously we try to leave the predictions until the very end. But some of the NFL workouts that the league has started to see in terms of names being, potential names just floating around for the team for the NFL to start looking at, right? Being that it's their off season. So Tony Fields, Aviators linebacker. I think I mentioned him as part of my some of my standout players last week when I was on the show with you, Diego, as being one of a standout player on the Columbus Aviators. So the Chicago Bears are working him out. He finished second in the UFL with 77 tackles and earned all UFL honors. Other players you have, oh yeah, and then I was gonna say Noah Johnson, Stallion center, is retiring. Diego, I'm sure you're very upset as a devout Stallions fan,
Nah, it's
but
okay, man. He was, for those who doesn't know, he was kind of a guy who was on the Michigan Panthers a lot. I think for 3 seasons straight, even when they were still in the USFL.
yeah,
From all the things I've heard, he was a very consistent guy. I
uh-huh.
think I think he was more of a rotational piece for this past season,
Okay,
so he
okay.
didn't see as many snaps, but nonetheless, I'm sure he had a great career. Best of luck to you, man.
Hmm.
And as you said, Tony Fields, I really like that workout a lot. I don't know if it's gonna translate to anything, but it is nice to see that
Hmm.
my Bears are at least looking at the UFL a bit and seeing what they got.
Yeah, he does have prior NFL experience. He was with the Browns with a stint, and so a lot of these guys have former NFL experience. So it's really nothing new to them, but it's great to see these guys potentially get some looks. Um, yeah. Additionally, you have Battlehawks defensive back and return specialist Sean Fresh Jr. Working out with the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos. He led the UFL in punt return yards this season, and then another Battlehawk is running back Kevon Latulis, who appeared in 9 games and he recorded 498 all-purpose yards. And then probably the final player, at least from what we have through good friend XFL Analyst's page, the Denver Broncos are working out Orlando Storm safety Josh Minkins, who recorded 39 tackles and 3 PBUs in 7 games, and then he was also third in tackles before he missed the final, or before missing 3 games of the season. So, yeah, I mean, workouts starting to ramp up. I remember Mike Rapoli was like, "Hey, like we're gonna get even more people in the NFL this year than what the league accumulated last year." So, it's great to see that. Always getting more awareness on this league, and hopefully we get another year where players turn out very successful, right? I mean, um, I don't think, what, I think last year we had a lot of good guys, from the NFL that made it to the NFL, but really hoping that, now that the league has kind of broken some barriers, that we see a lot of continued success. So did you guys have anything on these workouts? I know I kind of just flew by them, but it's always great to hear, maybe if you had some players you want to see in mind, from whether that's your team or a different team, if whether that's your NFL team you want them to work out with, or a different NFL team, I'd love to hear those. If not, we can go ahead and give our closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, just really quick. I would love to see if the Bears could possibly give Ian Wheeler a look again. He was on our preseason roster back in 2024, I think. So he has prior experience with us, and there's no diss to DeAndre Swift or any of the guys we got, but I feel like feel like he could easily be like a solid like 4 string or special teams or just a practice with guy that you could rely on if something ever happens. But no, I think there's a lot of talented guys that you could go off from this list. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe guys like Tanner Brown gets a look on the New York Jets maybe, or the Green Bay Packers, more like the teams that are more kicker needy, kind of. But Jack Plummer though, I feel like it'd be kind of fun if the Browns just out of nowhere decide to sign him.
Brother, I got a lot to say about the Cleveland Browns. Ooh, I'm not a fan of them. I want to make that clear. But doing this with my other friends on, this other podcast that I'm on, we're doing off-season grades, and Cleveland was so Cleveland. Anyway, yeah. So as far as workouts go, I'm more so curious to see what these players that are on DC and Louisville are doing after the championship game, because you got Bean, you got Abram Smith, Deion Jackson, and even these guys from these teams that just got eliminated, guys like KJ Hamler and Luis Perez. I want to see if any of these guys can get anything going in maybe be workouts or end up signing with a team anywhere. I will make a prediction though, real quick. You were mentioning Gil a lot earlier, Diego. I think Gil is going to be one of the first players from UFL to sign to the NFL this year. I think he's going to go to the Bengals. Bengals needed a lot of defensive help. While they did load up a lot in the offseason, I just think he'll be a pretty good addition for them. Maybe even fight for a starting spot at this point, but we'll see how that works out. But yeah, my more so bigger topic was these teams that either just got eliminated or are going to the championship game. We'll see what these guys do after that. But yeah, that's all I got on that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate both of you guys for joining here tonight. Jason, we'll make sure to tag you, do all that good stuff when we have this episode out. Thank you again for joining. Diego, thank you as always for joining. For anybody wondering, we plan from spring into football to get one more episode out after the championship concludes. And we're not on a strict timetable. So expect that to be out in the following week, but we'll make sure to stay in touch with our fans if anything else is what's in the cards. So thank you guys so much for joining. We hope you have a good night, and enjoy the championship game. It's crazy that we're already here.
My brother, I hate to interrupt you. Let me do a little bit of a shameless plug real quick. Right, guys, I'm Jason. I'm with the Bay State Media Collective podcast. We got a bunch of different sports. We do baseball, hockey, football. I'm more so of a football member. We got our Enzo Express podcast with my boy Amari, my boy Ben. We got those guys on there. So just go check us out. We're on at the Bay State Media on Instagram and Bay State Media Collective on YouTube.
I'm subscribing right after this episode.
Yes, sir. Any help we can get, my boy, appreciate you.
Jason, I'll make sure to subscribe too. I mean, the only reason I didn't give you that intro is because I didn't have as much knowledge as what you just threw at us. So, but yeah, we follow Jason in terms of his main account, and make sure to follow along with Bay State Media for all they provide. I mean, it's great that Jason. I mean, you recently joined, so it's not maybe like relatively recently, but we've kind of heard about your recent journey and how that's been. So we're really glad that you were able to join us here tonight, and please keep us updated. Anything that Bay State has over the football offseason in general. So
yeah, man. So we're trying to get our offseason grades out now. We're having a little bit of problems as far as the YouTube side getting those episodes. They're starting to come out, but we're getting those out the rest of the offseason. And a little bit of a spoiler here, but we were actually in talks with you guys behind the scenes as far as getting the collab episode out. We were going to talk, a little bit of UFL, a little bit of NFL. So it's going to be fun. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, appreciate you letting me give you a little shout out there.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Yeah. Thanks for joining. And yeah, of course, we'll keep in touch. If we ever need your help again, I'm sure we will at some point. I mean, we encounter each other, daily in the group chat, sometimes sometimes a little too excessively on my end, but listen, I'll try to keep myself regulated. All right.
Hey, brother, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just joking around a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
I thought we was like that. You know what I mean? But
No, I totally get it. But, I have to keep myself in check sometimes. But, if there's something that I get too excited about, then I'll voice my opinion. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll make sure to have this out as soon as possible, and have a good night.
Have a good night.
Alrighty.
Thanks, guys.
See you.